Welcome to Behind the Voice, a sub-series of the Rural Recharge podcast. This special series takes you behind the scenes to meet the leadership team at Florida Farm Bureau Federation. Each episode will highlight the various departments that work together to ensure our members' voices are heard. From advocating for smart policy to providing vital resources, our staff is committed to fulfilling our mission of increasing the net income of farmers and ranchers and improving the quality of rural life. Our guest joining us today is Mr. Curt Williams. Curt serves as the Director of Government and Community Affairs for Florida Farm Bureau. Our conversation today will detail how Mr. Williams serves our members of the Florida Farm Bureau Federation and advances the voice of agriculture. Curt, thank you for joining us today.
No, thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you end up at Farm Bureau? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm born and raised in Sumter County, lived on a farm my whole life. And from my early childhood, agriculture was everything. Family started out in row crops years ago and transitioned to a cow-calf operation, which we still own and operate today.
Tell us a little bit about your education, how you ended up here at Florida Farm Bureau.
Yeah, I started out with an interest in turf grass. My undergrad was in turf grass science. The idea was, that was a time when real estate was booming and, we got this small community north of us called the Villages and golf courses coming in. So I saw, had an interest in golf at the time as well as growing grass. It's great for the cattle as well.
That's right.
So got my degree in turf grass science. I met my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and thought, how can I stay up here in Gainesville to see how things progress? And, with a family of educators, my mother was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my aunt's a teacher. I thought, I'm going to stay and get my master's degree. Ended up staying and getting my master's in agribusiness management at the University of Florida. And went, just like most college students, you look for the first thing that comes along to start generating some revenue, and took a job with Valley Crest, which was at the time the largest general landscape company in the state, and worked in Orlando for about 3 years. I quickly realized that those were not my folks. It was a great starter job, but I did realize that it was not my people. My roots were in ag, even though we were planting plants and doing things. It was just a different group of people, and you never really got a sincere thank you. So 2009, Stacy Braswell, a good friend of ours, she said, "Hey, I've got a position open that I think you'd be good at and very interested in." And from there, I applied, and Pat Cockrell hired me as the Assistant Director of Government Affairs, and I covered South Florida Water Management District as well as St. Johns River Water Management District up until here last year when Charles Shin retired and applied for the director position. So in the same department, just a little slightly different role.
That's it. And thank you for sharing us that, because that is a very unique opportunity or unique set of events that put you here. Tell us a little bit about your job and responsibilities now as the Director of Government and Community Affairs.
Yeah, so our department, we cover all 5 water management districts across the state, cover South Florida all the way up to Northwest Florida Water Management District. We work very closely with the local governments in those districts, try to build relationships. Relationships are key. And just try to build a good working relationship with county commissioners, county staff, the Department of Agriculture. We work closely with them, Office of Ag Water Policy. We work closely with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Department of Environmental Protection as well.
And Florida Wildlife Commission as well. You do with FWC, not just the U.S.
That's correct, with Florida Wildlife Fish and Wildlife Commission as
Absolutely.
well.
Very good. Tell us a little bit about the structure of your team, where they are, where they're located, and what their responsibilities are.
Yeah, so we've got 2 other staff that work in this department. We've got Jake Foydick. He covers South Florida Water Management District, as well as all the counties within that district. And Jake's been with us, I believe, about 5 years now, and just a tremendous asset to Florida Farm Bureau. And we were lucky enough to grab Raleigh Rollerson here about a year ago. He'd worked for Office of Ag Water Policy for the last 10 years. And prior to that, he worked for South Florida Water Management District. So he had a great knowledge of water and natural resources and had a lot of those connections that He was very interested in being an advocate for agriculture. Couldn't necessarily do that working for the state, but with Florida Farm Bureau, he was able to do that and really help them. I think a great team. We talk all the time about our issues, and it's kind of neat how when you can't be in two places at once. I can always rely on Jake or Raleigh to cover a meeting or an event that I can't be at, and vice versa. We work flawlessly together and cover the issues across the entire state.
Curt, give us a little bit of background on maybe some examples of what your team would engage in on a weekly or monthly basis. Some things that maybe can describe to our members here what they would access you for.
Yeah, so on a daily basis, we look at the Federal Register. We look at different meetings and different rule changes in the state as well.
So in the Federal Register, what are you looking for specifically?
Yeah, primarily like endangered species listings. We look at any changes in policy dealing with the Endangered Species Act, any waters of the U.S. issues, any environmental changes. We want to make sure that our members understand what's coming so that we can engage them and they can start speaking to their legislators and be engaged in the process.
What other things? You've got register, you deal with local issues as well.
We do. So we look at county commission meeting agendas on a daily basis, try to stay on top of those local issues that are extremely important to our members. Our mission is to increase the net profit of farmers and ranchers. And the legislative process isn't the only way to do that. A lot of times, a lot of those fire taxes and not issuing green belt to some producers, there's so many things that we like to focus that have a direct impact to producers' pockets. And we want to try to stay on top of those things and make sure that we address them and keep them engaged in that process.
Your department deals with some growth management issues as well. So if somebody had a planning and zoning matter that might come before their county commission, they can contact you to help and assist them?
They can. And again, we like to work very closely with county commissioners and county staff so that we're part of the process. When they're planning growth, we want to ensure that the producer, our members, have the ability to stay in ag and keep that ag productive. There's some studies that we've seen, like in Hillsborough County, for example, where every dollar invested in the county from agriculture or rural properties, they only see about 25 cents on that dollar. And some studies have shown different, even less, that they see a return and realize the investment that they've made. So it's very important, and we want to make sure the counties understand the importance of agriculture on the landscape, not just for the recharge, not just for the wildlife, but for their income, their tax revenue, because ag does put a lot in, and they don't necessarily see a lot of that back. So it's very beneficial for the counties.
One of the things I know that you've dealt with more recently is definitely depredation of especially deer depredation, those kinds of matters. I know your department's dealt with that more recently. Tell a little bit about what you've dealt with FWC to accomplish there to help our members.
Deer depredation is an issue that the Southeast is seeing. It's just devastating a lot of the croplands, and it's a lot of urban encroachment. Those wildlife have to go somewhere, and they go to the food source, and agriculture provides that food source. So it's, when cotton prices, for example, are so high, and the deer devastate the cotton crop. It does two things. It changes their growing period. It changes when they have to replant, they'll miss a market, or the deer will eat on that plant. It changes, takes the apical dominance away and makes that plant grow laterally. Well, cotton harvesters aren't intended to harvest cotton, a short bushy crop. So, and the same thing with peanuts as well. The deer will go and eat on those peanuts and devastate that crop as well. And we've seen a lot of the damage up in the Panhandle, but also in other parts of the state. And we work very closely with FWC to try to change some of their rules we've worked with some of the hunting groups as well, so that they could educate their hunters to take the does and not just hunt the bucks, to help reduce that population. It's just like, you put too many cows on a pasture, they're going to overgraze. And that's kind of where we're at with the deer population in parts of the state where they're just too many. A lot of vehicle strikes and a lot of crop damage as well. So a huge issue with the state. And we were able to get some of the changes done that kind of help the producers to kind of help reduce that deer population in some of those high population areas.
Curt, it's amazing what y'all have been able to do. And the amount of contact that you have made with other departments, not just with FWC. You mentioned hunting groups and legislators, everything that has worked hand in glove, you have worked with to accomplish one problem to find a solution, and it's been very successful. But you also do that in other arenas too. Some even minute things. Guardrails in a county that you dealt with as well. They're small things. So our members can come to you and your department, whether it be Jake or Raleigh, and say, I've got a local government issue. Can you help me with it? You're assisting with that. If you have an agency issue, whether it's the, U.S. Army Corps of Engineer and 404 permitting, you deal with that, or the U.S. Wildlife or FWC. Y'all have done those kinds of things. It's just a tremendous asset. And I can tell you that as I see this state continue to grow and get larger with a population increasing, that I think local government and community affairs is going to be more and more valuable to our members.
Yeah, and what's really rewarding about this position and some of the things that we've seen take place is, for example, the stormwater assessment down in South Central Florida. It's really cool to see the grassroots efforts when you get a county president come to you and say, hey, we're having this issue where the county was trying to impose a stormwater special assessment on cattle producers or on landowners, where they were saying their roadways, which was nothing but rock, was an impermeable surface causing problems with their stormwater system. We took that information, took it to Tallahassee, and all of a sudden we have a new law that prevents counties from putting those special assessments in place, which saved producers thousands and thousands of dollars in some cases. Another example is the fire tax. And we had a producer, a dairyman, that was getting hit with a fire tax, saying that he needed sprinkler systems, he needed signage, he needed all these things, when reality is you have a hard time getting wet cow manure, steel, and concrete to set on fire. Right. So it's just common sense things that, in the long run saves our producers, saves them a little bit of money that hopefully keeps them in business a little longer and keeps that green space where it's at in agriculture.
You've mentioned a lot of them, Curt. Is there one specific one that you think about that maybe really, really, really unique or off the wall that your department's dealt with in your time here at Florida Farm Bureau?
Well, with the agritourism issue, we've seen what was supposed to be a great piece of legislation to help producers. We get a lot of calls and a lot of requests from, they're not active members, but they are members, so we try to help them. But they'll go build a huge barn and they'll start an agritourism operation. It's just sometimes hard to explain to them that agritourism is, to educate. It's not just wedding venues and things. So that's been kind of a tough one to deal with. There's a lot of gray in that legislation. That's been the most difficult and kind of a headache at times.
Well, you've heard from Curt Williams and the tremendous diversity that his department deals with. Curt, is there anything that you'd like to leave with the listeners today?
No, I thank our producers. I come from ag, and I know how important it is to the state for our national security as well. Just very thankful for the producers. I'm honored and very thankful to be able to work for this great organization to kind of keep those producers in business, again, increase their net profits. And what's really cool coming from an ag background is, it's very rewarding because, my family's in ag as well. So everything that we do is very rewarding because I feel like I'm helping my family as well as the producers across the state. So a wonderful organization to work for and very thankful to be here.
There you have it. It's Curt Williams with Government and Community Affairs. Curt, thank you for what you do for our members. We love you, appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting the Rural Recharge podcast. We hope that you are enjoying these conversations brought to you by farmers for your benefit. While you're here, please consider giving us a rating or a review. It really does help us to continue to share the stories of our Florida farm families and the important impact they have on your community. Thank you, and have a great day.